Biology's most exciting era. Welcome to biology, the scientific study of life. You are becoming involved with biology during its most exciting era. The largest and best-equipped community of scientists in history is beginning to solve biological puzzles that once seemed unsolvable. We are moving ever closer to understanding how a single microscopic cell develops into a complex plant or animal, how plants convert solar energy to the chemical energy of food, how the human mind works, how various forms of life network in biological communities such as forests and coral reefs, and how the great diversity of life on Earth evolved from the first microbes. The more we learn about life, the more fascinating it becomes, as progress on one question leads to even more questions that will captivate curious minds for decades to come. More than anything else, biology is a quest, an ongoing inquiry about the nature of life. Modern biology is as important as it is inspiring. Research breakthroughs in genetics and cell biology are transforming medicine and agriculture. Molecular biology is providing new tools for fields as diverse as anthropology and criminal science. Neuroscience and evolutionary biology are reshaping psychology and sociology. New models in ecology are helping societies evaluate environmental issues, such as the causes and biological consequences of global warming. These are just a few examples of how biology weaves into the fabric of our culture more than ever before. There has never been a better time to explore life. The phenomenon we call life defies a simple one-sentence definition. Yet almost any child perceives that a dog or a bug or a plant, such as the fern fiddlehead, that graces the cover of this book is alive, while a rock is not. We recognize life by what living things do. As we set off to explore life, it helps to have a panoramic view of the vast field of study before us. This opening chapter introduces the wide scope of biology, highlights the diversity of life, describes themes such as evolution that unify all of biology, and examines methods of inquiry that biologists use to explore life. Biologists explore life from the microscopic to the global scale. The study of life extends from the microscopic scale of the molecules and cells that make up organisms to the global scale of the entire living planet. We can divide this enormous range into different levels of biological organization. A hierarchy of biological organization. Imagine zooming in from space to take a closer and closer look at life on Earth. Our destination is a forest in Ontario, Canada, where we will eventually use microscopes and other instruments to explore a maple leaf right down to the molecular level. The biosphere. As soon as we are near enough to Earth to make out its continents and oceans, we begin to see signs of life, in the green mosaic of the planet's forests, for example. This is our first view of the biosphere, which consists of all the environments on Earth that are inhabited by life. The biosphere includes most regions of land, most bodies of water, such as oceans, lakes, and rivers, and the atmosphere to an altitude of several kilometers. Ecosystems. As we approach Earth's surface for an imaginary landing in Ontario, we can begin to make out a forest with an abundance of deciduous trees, trees that lose their leaves in one season and grow new ones in another. Such a deciduous forest is an example of an ecosystem. Grasslands, deserts, and the ocean's coral reefs are other types of ecosystems. An ecosystem consists of all the living things in a particular area, along with all the non-living components of the environment with which life interacts, such as soil, water, atmospheric gases, and light. All of Earth's ecosystems combined make up the biosphere. The entire array of organisms inhabiting a particular ecosystem is called a biological community. The community in our forest ecosystem includes many kinds of trees and other plants, a diversity of animals, various mushrooms and other fungi, and enormous numbers of diverse microorganisms, which are living forms such as bacteria that are too small to see without a microscope. Each of these forms of life is called a species. A population consists of all the individuals of a species living within the bounds of a specified area. For example, our Ontario forest includes a population of sugar maple trees and a population of American black bears. We can now refine our definition of a community as the set of populations that inhabit a particular area. Organisms. Individual living things are called organisms. Each of the maple trees and other plants in the forest is an organism, and so is each forest animal, such as a frog, squirrel, bear, and insect. The soil teems with microorganisms such as bacteria, organs, and organ systems. The structural hierarchy of life continues to unfold as we explore the architecture of the more complex organisms. A maple leaf is an example of an organ, a body part consisting of two or more tissues, which we'll see upon our next scale change. Stems and roots are the other major organs of plants. Examples of human organs are the brain, heart, and kidney. The organs of humans and other complex animals are organized into organ systems, each a team of organs that cooperate in a specific function. For example, the human digestive system includes such organs as the tongue, stomach, and intestines. Tissues. Our next scale change to see a leaf's tissues requires a microscope. The leaf on the left has been cut on an angle. The honeycombed tissue in the interior of the leaf, upper half of photo, is the main location of photosynthesis, the process that converts light energy to the chemical energy of sugar and other food. We are viewing the sliced leaf from a perspective that also enables us to see the jigsaw puzzle-like tissue called epidermis, the skin on the surface of the leaf, lower half of photo. The pores through the epidermis allow the gas carbon dioxide, a raw material for sugar production, to reach the photosynthetic tissue in the interior of the leaf. At this scale, we can also see that each tissue has a cellular structure. In fact, each kind of tissue is a group of similar cells. Cells. The cell is life's fundamental unit of structure and function. Some organisms, such as amoebas and most bacteria, are single cells. Other organisms, including plants and animals, are multicellular. Instead of a single cell performing all the functions of life, a multicellular organism has a division of labor among specialized cells. A human body consists of trillions of microscopic cells of many different kinds, including muscle cells and nerve cells, which are organized into the various specialized tissues. For example, muscle tissue consists of bundles of muscle cells. And note again the cells of the tissue within a leaf's interior. Each of the cells you see is only about 25 micrometers across. It would take more than 700 of these cells to reach across a penny. As small as these cells are, you can see that each contains numerous green structures called chloroplasts, which are responsible for photosynthesis. Organelles. Chloroplasts are examples of organelles, the various functional components that make up cells. In this figure, a very powerful tool called an electron microscope brings a single chloroplast into sharp focus. Molecules. Our last scale change vaults us into a chloroplast for a view of life at the molecular level. A molecule is a chemical structure consisting of two or more small chemical units called atoms, which are represented as balls in this computer graphic of a chlorophyll molecule. Chlorophyll is the pigment molecule that makes a maple leaf green. One of the most important molecules on Earth, chlorophyll absorbs sunlight during the first step of photosynthesis. Within each chloroplast, millions of chlorophylls and other molecules are organized into the equipment that converts light energy to the chemical energy of food. A closer look at ecosystems. Life does not exist in a vacuum. Each organism interacts continuously with its environment, which includes other organisms as well as non-living factors. The roots of a tree, for example, absorb water and minerals from the soil. The leaves take in carbon dioxide from the air. Solar energy absorbed by chlorophyll drives photosynthesis, which converts water and carbon dioxide to sugar and oxygen. The tree releases oxygen to the air, and its roots help form soil by breaking up rocks. Both organism and environment are affected by the interactions between them. The tree also interacts with other life, including soil microorganisms associated with its roots and animals that eat its leaves and fruit. Ecosystem dynamics. The dynamics of any ecosystem include two major processes. One process is the cycling of nutrients. For example, minerals acquired by plants will eventually be returned to the soil by microorganisms that decompose leaf litter, dead roots, and other organic debris. The second major process in an ecosystem is the flow of energy from sunlight to producers to consumers. Producers are plants and other photosynthetic organisms that convert light energy to chemical energy. Consumers are organisms, such as animals, that feed on producers and other consumers. Energy conversion. Moving, growing, reproducing, and other activities of life require organisms to perform work. And work depends on a source of energy. The exchange of energy between an organism and its surroundings often involves the transformation of one form of energy to another. For example, when a leaf produces sugar, it converts solar energy to chemical energy in sugar molecules. When an animal's muscle cells use sugar as fuel to power movements, They convert chemical energy to kinetic energy, the energy of motion. And in all these energy conversions, some of the available energy is converted to thermal energy, which working organisms dissipate to their surroundings as heat. In contrast to chemical nutrients, which recycle within an ecosystem, energy flows through an ecosystem, usually entering as light and exiting as heat. A closer look at cells. In life's structural hierarchy, the cell has a special place as the lowest level of organization that can perform all activities required for life. For example, the ability of cells to divide to form new cells is the basis for all reproduction and for the growth and repair of multicellular organisms. Your every movement and thought are based on the activities of muscle cells and nerve cells. Even a global process such as the recycling of carbon, a chemical element essential to life, is the cumulative product of cellular activities, including the photosynthesis that occurs in the chloroplasts of leaf cells. Understanding how cells work is a major research focus of modern biology. The cell's heritable information. Take another look at the dividing cell. Within the cells, you can see structures called chromosomes, which are stained with a blue glowing dye. The chromosomes are partly made of a substance called deoxyribonucleic acid, or DNA for short. DNA is the substance of genes, the units of inheritance that transmit information from parents to offspring. Your blood group, AB, or O, for example, is the result of certain genes that you inherited from your parents. Each chromosome has one very long DNA molecule, with hundreds or thousands of genes arranged along its length. The DNA of chromosomes replicates as a cell prepares to divide. Thus, each of the two cellular offspring inherits a complete set of genes. Each of us began life as a single cell stocked with DNA inherited from our parents. Replication of that DNA transmitted those genes to our trillions of cells. In each cell, the genes along the length of DNA molecules encode the information for building the cell's other molecules. In this way, DNA directs the development and maintenance of the entire organism. The molecular structure of DNA accounts for its information-rich nature. Each DNA molecule is made up of two long chains arranged into what is called a double helix. Each link of a chain is one of four kinds of chemical building blocks called nucleotides. The way DNA encodes a cell's information is analogous to the way we arrange the letters of the alphabet into precise sequences with specific meanings. The word rat, for example, conjures up an image of a rodent. The words tar and art, which contain the same letters, mean very different things. Libraries are filled with books containing information encoded in varying sequences of only 26 letters. We can think of nucleotides as the alphabet of inheritance. Specific sequential arrangements of these four chemical letters encode the precise information in genes, which are typically hundreds of thousands of nucleotides long. One gene in a bacterial cell may be translated as build a purple pigment. A particular human gene may mean make the hormone insulin. More generally, most genes program the cell's production of large molecules called proteins. The sequence of nucleotides along each gene codes for a specific protein with a unique shape and function in the cell. One protein might be part of the contractile apparatus of muscle cells. Another protein might be an antibody, part of the body's defense system against viruses and other disease agents. Still another protein might be an enzyme, a protein that catalyzes, speeds up, a specific chemical reaction in a cell. Almost all cellular activities involve the action of one or more proteins. DNA provides the heritable blueprints, but proteins are the tools that actually build and maintain the cell. All forms of life employ essentially the same genetic code. A particular sequence of nucleotides says the same thing to one organism as it does to another. Differences between organisms reflect differences between their nucleotide sequences. But because the genetic code is universal, it is possible to engineer cells to produce proteins normally found only in some other organism. One of the first pharmaceutical products obtained using this technology was human insulin, produced by bacteria into which a gene for this human protein was inserted. The entire library of genetic instructions that an organism inherits is called its genome. The chromosomes of each human cell pack a genome that is about 3 billion nucleotides long. If the one-letter symbols for this sequence of nucleotides were written in letters the size of those you are now reading, the genetic text would fill about 600 books the size of this one. Within this genomic library of nucleotide sequences are genes coding for the production of more than 75,000 different kinds of proteins, each with a specific function. All cells share certain characteristics. For example, every cell is enclosed by a membrane that regulates the passage of materials between the cell and its surroundings. And every cell uses DNA as its genetic information. We can distinguish two main forms of cells: prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells. The cells of two groups of microorganisms called bacteria and archaea are prokaryotic. All other forms of life, including plants and animals, are composed of eukaryotic cells. A eukaryotic cell is subdivided by internal membranes into various membrane-enclosed organelles, including the chloroplasts. In most eukaryotic cells, the largest organelle is the nucleus, which contains the cell's DNA as chromosomal molecules. The other organelles are located in the cytoplasm, the entire region between the nucleus and outer membrane of the cell. Prokaryotic cells are much simpler and generally smaller than eukaryotic cells. In a prokaryotic cell, the DNA is not separated from the rest of the cell by enclosure in a membrane-bounded nucleus. Prokaryotic cells also lack the other kinds of membrane-enclosed organelles that characterize eukaryotic cells. The prokaryote-eukaryote difference is an example of the biological diversity we will explore. But first, let's take one more look at the hierarchy of biological order, this time in the context of a research movement called systems biology.